The first thing Maya Chen noticed when she walked into the Intergalactic Military Academy dining hall was the silence. Not the comfortable quiet of focused eating, but the heavy, watching kind that made her neck prickle. 200 alien cadets turned to stare at the human girl carrying her meal tray across polished obsidian floors. She'd been here 3 weeks. The stares hadn't stopped. "A deathworlder," a voice called from her left. "Kraith, a Vorthan male with crystalline skin that refracted light into aggressive rainbows. Careful not to crush that tray. I hear your species doesn't know its own strength." Maya didn't break stride. "I hear your species doesn't know when to shut up, but here we are, defying expectations." Scattered laughter rippled through the hall, mostly from the other humans, all 6 of them scattered across different tables like strategic pieces on a game board. The Intergalactic Coalition had accepted Earth into its military alliance only 8 months ago. This academy, located on the neutral moon of Threshold, represented humanity's first real chance to prove itself among species that had been traveling the stars for millennia. Maya found an empty table near the viewport, where the planet Threshold Prime hung like a green marble against the void. She'd just started eating her protein synth when a shadow fell across her tray. 4 Voranti cadets surrounded her table. Kraith stood at the front, arms crossed over his chest in what passed for aggressive posture among his people. "You think you're clever," he said, his translator chip rendering his words in flat English. "Making jokes. Acting like you belong here." Maya took another bite, chewing slowly. "I don't think I'm clever. I know I'm clever. There's a difference. Your species barely discovered faster than light travel. You don't even have proper kinetic shielding. Yet here you are in the top-tier combat strategy program, scoring higher than cadets whose ancestors were navigating hyperspace when yours were still banging rocks together." "To be fair," Maya said, setting down her fork with deliberate care, "we got really good at banging rocks together. Hence our current success." Kraith's crystalline face flushed deeper violet. "You're cheating. There's no other explanation." "Or," Maya countered, standing slowly to her full height, which put her eye level with the Vorthante, despite humans being considered small by Coalition standards. "Your teaching methods are designed for species that evolved in nice, safe environments. We didn't. Adaptation is what we do." The dining hall had gone completely silent now. Even the serving drones had paused their circuits. Maya felt the weight of every eye on her, but her pulse stayed steady. Her father had been a Navy SEAL before Earth made first contact. He'd taught her young that backing down from bullies only made them hungrier. Kraith reached out faster than she'd expected, grabbing the collar of her uniform with one crystalline hand. "Listen, primitive." Maya's response was instinctive. Her hand shot up, wrist twisting in a move her father had drilled into her thousands of times. She broke his grip, redirected his momentum, and suddenly Kraith was bent forward at an awkward angle, his arm locked behind his back in a hold that would shatter his crystalline structure if he struggled. The hall exploded into chaos. Chairs scraped, voices rose in a dozen languages. Someone triggered an alert. "Let me explain something," Maya said quietly, keeping her voice level despite the adrenaline singing through her veins. "On Earth, grabbing someone like that is an invitation to violence. Consider this a cultural lesson." She released him and stepped back. Kraith stumbled forward, his prismatic skin flickering with embarrassment. Before he could respond, a commanding voice cut through the noise. "What is happening here?" Commander Thrace, the Academy's head of combat operations, strode into the dining hall. She was Sethari, 7 feet of scaled blue muscle, and tactical genius. Her species had been warriors for 10,000 years. Maya had enormous respect for her. "Cadet Chen," Thrace said, her golden eyes fixed on Maya. "Explain." Maya stood at attention. Cadet Kraith grabbed my uniform. "Commander," I responded with a defensive technique to extract myself from the situation. Thrace's gaze shifted to Kraith. "Is this accurate?" The Voranti cadet's flush deepened. "She provoked me with her insolence, Commander." I asked if her account was accurate. Thrace said, ice in her voice. "Did you initiate physical contact?" Silence. Then reluctantly, "Yes, Commander." "Then you violated Academy protocol and assaulted a fellow cadet. Report to my office immediately." Thrace turned back to Maya. "Your response was measured and appropriate. However, I expect you to file a formal incident report within the hour." "Yes, Commander." As Thrace escorted Krath from the hall, the other Vorthan cadets melted away. Maya sat back down to her now cold meal, acutely aware that she'd just made her situation considerably more complicated. A figure dropped into the seat across from her. Lieutenant Jessa Park, one of the other human cadets, grinned broadly. That was the most beautiful wrist lock I've seen since basic training. It was stupid, Maya said. I just made an enemy. You already had enemies. Now you've got their attention. Jessa leaned forward. Look, Chen, these aliens have spent centuries in their nice peaceful coalition. They've got rules and protocols and very civilized warfare. But Earth, we spent 10,000 years perfecting how to kill each other in increasingly creative ways. That's not something to apologize for. It's also not something to brag about, Maya replied, though she couldn't quite suppress her smile. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of training exercises, tactical simulations, and pointed silence from the Vorthi cadets. Maya threw herself into her studies, spending long hours in the strategy rooms and simulation pods. The Academy's curriculum was brutal, designed to forge the Coalition's next generation of military leaders. She excelled at everything. The problem was, nobody wanted to believe it was real. The whispers followed her everywhere. Cheating. Deception. Somehow accessing restricted data. The human brain's supposed advantages in pattern recognition and strategic thinking were dismissed as propaganda. How could a species that had barely left its own star system compete with civilizations that had been mastering warfare for longer than human civilization had existed? Maya ignored it all. She had a point to prove, not to them but to herself. The breaking point came during the Threshold War Games, a month-long simulation that would account for 40% of their final combat strategy grade. Teams of 5 cadets would be assigned to command virtual fleets in a scenario based on the Coalition's bloodiest historical conflict. Victory required not just tactical brilliance but also coordination, trust, and adaptability. Maya's team assignment appeared on her datapad during breakfast. She scanned the names and felt her stomach drop. Team leader Cadet Maya Chen, Earth. Team members Cadet Kraith, Voranth, Cadet Silix, Rindari, Cadet Thorn, Kaleshi, Cadet Urin, Sethari. She'd been assigned to lead the very cadet she'd humiliated, plus 4 others from species known for their military prowess. It was either a test or a setup, possibly both. The first team meeting took place in a strategy room overlooking Threshold Prime. Maya arrived early, reviewing the simulation parameters on the room's central holotable. The scenario was a defensive operation, protect a civilian convoy while outnumbered 3-1 by a hostile force. Her team members arrived one by one. Kraith came last, his crystalline features unreadable. They took their positions around the holotable and Maya felt the weight of their collective skepticism. All right, she began, calling up the tactical display. We have 3 days to formulate our strategy before the simulation begins. Our objective, we know the objective. Kraith interrupted. The question is whether you're capable of leading us to achieve it. Maya met his gaze steadily. That's exactly what we're going to find out. Now, if you're done posturing, let's talk about the enemy fleet composition. For the next 2 hours, they analyzed every aspect of the scenario. The civilian convoy consisted of 20 freighters carrying refugees from a war-torn colony. The enemy fleet comprised 15 warships, including 2 heavy cruisers. Coalition doctrine called for a defensive perimeter and calculated retreat if losses exceeded 30%. Meh, hated it. This is wrong, she said, manipulating the holographic display to run her own simulation. If we follow standard doctrine, we lose 8 ships minimum and half the convoy. Unacceptable. Silix, the Grendari tactical specialist, clicked his mandibles in disagreement. Coalition strategy has been refined over centuries. Your species has been space-capable for less than a year, which means we're not trapped by centuries of doctrine, Maya countered. She pulled up Earth's military history, specifically the Battle of Thermopylae. My people have a saying, the best defense is a good offense. That's the worst saying I've ever heard, Thorn muttered. The Kaleshi engineer was usually quiet, but when she spoke, people listened. Maya grinned. Probably. But here's the thing, they expect us to defend, they expect us to form up and play it safe. What if we do the opposite? She ran her simulation. Instead of a defensive perimeter, she proposed aggressive strike using their fastest ships to punch through the enemy formation, targeting their command structure. While the enemy fleet reorganized, the convoy would perform a micro-jump to a pre-calculated safe zone. It was risky, potentially catastrophic, and violated every principle of coalition tactical doctrine. This is madness, Kraith said, But Maya noticed he was leaning forward studying the simulation with new interest. It's unpredictable. You're incorrected. The Setari weapons specialist tilted her scaled head. They won't expect it because it's fundamentally unsound. Or, Maya said quietly, they won't expect it because they've never fought an enemy willing to sacrifice tactical soundness for strategic victory. On Earth, we call it asymmetric warfare. The room fell silent as they watched her simulation play out. The initial strike would cost them 3 ships, possibly 4, but the enemy fleet, thrown into disarray, would need crucial minutes to reorganize, minutes the convoy would use to escape. It might work, Silix admitted grudgingly, but it requires perfect timing and coordination. Then we practice until it's perfect, Maya said. We have 3 days. Let's use them. They worked around the clock, refining the strategy, running hundreds of simulations. Slowly, grudgingly, her team began to function as a unit. Krell's understanding of Vorthanti's shield harmonics proved invaluable. Thorn redesigned their power distribution system to maximize speed during the initial strike. Yoring calculated firing solutions that would cripple enemy command ships in the first salvo. And Maya, slowly, began to earn their respect. The night before the simulation, she found Krell alone in the strategy room, reviewing their plan for the 100th time. "Can't sleep?" she asked, settling into a chair beside him. He didn't look at her. "I keep running the numbers. The margin for error is razor thin." "It always is," Maya said. "That's war. Your people must be very comfortable with death." "Comfortable? No." Maya stared out at Threshold Prime, thinking of her father's stories, of humanity's blood-soaked history. "But we understand it. We've lived with it forever. Maybe that's our advantage." Krell finally turned to face her. "I grabbed your collar because I was angry, frustrated. My entire life, I was told Vorthanti were superior tacticians. Then you arrived and made me look foolish without even trying." "You're not foolish," Maya said. "You're skilled, Krell. Genuinely talented. But you've been taught one way to think. I was taught 100 ways, most of them wrong, and had to figure out which ones worked through trial and error." He considered this. "If we win tomorrow, it will be because your chaotic human thinking somehow complemented our disciplined coalition training. If we win tomorrow," Maya corrected with a slight smile, "it will be because we work together. That's the whole point of this exercise." The simulation began at 0800 hours. 5 teams competed simultaneously, each defending identical convoys against identical enemy forces. The Academy's observation deck filled with instructors and senior cadets, all watching the tactical displays with intense interest. Commander Thrace stood at the center, her golden eyes tracking every move. Maya's team took their positions in the command pod, neural interfaces linking them to their virtual fleet. The weight of the connection settled over her mind like a familiar coat. She could feel her ships, sense their capabilities, almost hear the virtual crews awaiting orders. "All teams, begin," Thrace's voice echoed through the pods. Maya watched 4 other teams immediately form defensive perimeters around their convoys. Standard coalition doctrine exactly as predicted. "Execute Phase 1, she ordered. Her 3 fastest destroyers broke formation, accelerating to 0.9 light speed directly toward the enemy fleet. The observation deck erupted in confused murmurs. On the tactical display, her ships appeared to be committing suicide. "Incoming fire," Yorin reported, her voice calm despite the chaos. "Shields holding at 70%. Firing solution locked," Silix added. "Target enemy flagship." "Fire," Maya commanded. The virtual space lit up with weapons fire. Her destroyers unleashed everything they had in a single coordinated salvo, then scattered like startled fish. The enemy flagship's shields collapsed. Its command structure went dark. "Enemy formation breaking," Thorn announced. "Convoy ready for jump." "Jump now," Maya said. The convoy vanished in a flash of blue light, reappearing 3 million kilometers away. The enemy fleet, still reeling from the unexpected assault, took 90 seconds to reorganize and give chase. 90 seconds too long. Maya's remaining ships conducted a fighting retreat, trading fire with enemy pursuers while the convoy made its final jump to safety. When the simulation ended, her team had lost 4 ships but saved the entire convoy. Every other team lost half their fleet, and between 30 to 60% of their convoy. The command pod released them back into reality. Maya pulled off her neural interface, hands shaking slightly from adrenaline. Her team sat in stunned silence, and Krell started laughing. It was a strange sound, like crystals chiming against each other. That was insane. Absolutely insane. That was brilliant. You're incorrected. Her scaled face split in a predatory grin. Commander Thrace's voice crackled over the intercom. Team Chen, report to the observation deck immediately. They walked together through the academy corridors, their earlier antagonism replaced by something else. Not quite friendship yet, but the beginning of mutual respect earned through shared risk. The observation deck was still crowded when they arrived. Thrace stood at the center, her expression unreadable. The tactical displays showed all 5 simulation results side by side. Cadet Chen, Thrace said, her voice carrying across the deck. Explain your strategy. Maya straightened. Commander, Coalition doctrine prioritizes preservation of military assets. It's sound thinking for a defensive alliance that's rarely been seriously threatened. But the scenario presented an impossible choice. Follow doctrine and accept unacceptable losses, or break doctrine and find another way. So you chose chaos, another instructor, a Voranthi admiral said coldly. I chose adaptation, Maya corrected. Earth's military history is built on inferior forces defeating superior ones through unconventional tactics. We don't have the luxury of technological or numerical superiority, so we learn to think thinkant. The admiral's crystalline face flushed with anger. Your recklessness cost 4 ships. Coalition doctrine would have cost 8 ships and half the convoy. Maya kept her voice respectful but firm. I was assigned to protect civilians, Admiral. I did that by violating every principle of sound tactical. Enough, Thrace interrupted. She turned to Maya, and something flickered in her golden eyes. Respect? Amusement? Your strategy was unorthodox, aggressive, and showed complete disregard for established military doctrine. Maya's heart sank. It was also, Thrace continued, the most innovative tactical thinking I've seen in 20 years of teaching at this academy. Your team achieved a 98% success rate where coalition doctrine projected 60% maximum. That is not recklessness. That is evolution. The observation deck erupted into argument. Half the instructors praised Maya's creativity. The other half condemned her dangerous precedent. Through it all, Maya stood straight, her team flanking her, united despite their differences. Then Kratha did something unexpected. He stepped forward and grabbed Maya's collar just as he had in the dining hall weeks before. The deck fell instantly silent, but this time, instead of aggression, he pressed his forehead against hers in the Vorthanti gesture of deepest respect. I was wrong about you, he said clearly, his translator broadcasting his words. About humans. You are not primitive. You are not cheating. You are simply better at this than we are, and that terrifies us. He released her and stepped back. One by one, her other team members came forward, each offering their species' gesture of respect. Silix clicked his mandibles in the Grenda Jurai salute. Thorn touched her palm to Maya's in the Kaleshi bond. Yoreen bared her teeth in the Setheri warrior's grin. Maya felt her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. This was what she'd come here for. Not to prove humans were superior, but to prove they belonged. Commander Thrace watched the scene with satisfaction. Cadet Chen, your performance has not gone unnoticed. The Coalition Command has been watching this simulation closely. They want to meet with you. Tomorrow. 900 hours. Yes, Commander, Maya managed, her mind racing. Coalition Command, the highest military authority in known space. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in her quarters, staring at the ceiling, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. Every instinct screamed that something significant was about to change. She was right. The next morning, Maya reported to the Academy's secure conference room. Commander Thrace was already there, along with 3 figures Maya recognized from news broadcasts. Admiral Varys of the Coalition Strategic Command, High General Crix of Planetary Defense, and someone she'd never expected to see, Ambassador Helena Cross, Earth's representative to the Coalition Council, and Maya's aunt. Sit down, Maya, Helena said gently. Maya sat, confusion warring with growing dread. What's going on? Admiral Varys leaned forward, his 6 eyes fixed on her with unsettling intensity. 6 months ago, we detected something at the edge of Coalition space. A fleet, not just any fleet. The Krell Dominion. Maya's blood went cold. Every species in the Coalition knew that name. The Krell were the reason the Coalition existed, The ancient enemy that had nearly exterminated a dozen civilizations before being driven back into dark space 2,000 years ago. They were supposed to be They're returning, Thrace said quietly. In numbers we cannot match. Every tactical simulation shows us losing. Our ships are more advanced, but they outnumber us 20-1. Coalition doctrine cannot win this fight, but unconventional human thinking might. Helena finished. She looked at her niece with pride and sorrow. Maya, they want you to help redesign Coalition defensive strategy. You're 18 years old, you've been at this academy for 2 months, and the fate of 300 civilizations might rest on your ability to think like a human. Maya stared at her aunt, then at the Coalition's highest military leaders, then back again. No pressure, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Admiral Vorsa's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Indeed, no pressure at all. As if on cue, the conference room's view screen activated. It showed the edge of Coalition space, where sensors had detected the incoming threat. The Krell fleet filled the screen like a swarm of locusts. Thousands upon thousands of ships blotting out the stars, and they were accelerating. Maya spent the next 72 hours in the Academy's war room, surrounded by the Coalition's finest strategic minds, drowning in data she could barely process. The Krell fleet was massive, coordinated and following tactical patterns that made her head hurt trying to understand. Every simulation ended the same way. The Coalition shattered, worlds burning, billions dead. Run it again, she said for the 100th time, her eyes burning with exhaustion. Commander Thrace put a scaled hand on her shoulder. Chen, you need rest. You've been at this for 3 days straight, and in 2 weeks. The Krell reached the first populated system. Maya pulled up another simulation. I'm missing something. There's a pattern here. I can feel it. Admiral Voris clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. The Zephyri commander had seen 1,000 battles in his long life. Perhaps you are looking too closely. Step back. What do you see? Aya rubbed her eyes and forced herself to view the fleet movements from a wider perspective. The Krell ships moved in perfect synchronization, their formations flawless, their coordination impossibly precise. Too precise. They're not individual ships, she said slowly. They're operating as one organism. Look at the response times. The formation shifts. No communication lag, no independent decision-making. It's like watching a school of fish. A hive mind, Thrace said. We suspected as much but could never confirm it, which means they have a weakness. Maya started pulling up new data, her exhaustion forgotten. Everything with a hive structure has a central node. Cut off the head and the body dies. Disrupt the queen and the colony collapses. High General Krix, a massive Thrundian warrior who'd remained mostly silent during the planning sessions, rumbled his disagreement. We tried that approach in the last Kret War. Air command ships are too well defended. We lost entire fleets attempting to reach them, because you attacked them like military targets, Maya countered. She was pacing now, her mind racing. What if we don't? What if we make them come to us? She called up a star chart showing the Coalition's border systems. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, marking positions, drawing lines, building something only she could see yet. The Krell are heading straight for Threshold Prime. It's the Coalition's administrative center, the symbolic heart of our alliance. They want to break us psychologically by destroying what we value most.
Obviously,
Admiral Voris said, which is why we've been evacuating the planet and preparing defensive positions. Don't evacuate it, Maya said. Bait it. The room went silent. Ambassador Cross stood from her chair, her face pale. Maya, you can't be suggesting we use Threshold Prime as a trap. 15 billion people live there. Lived, Maya corrected gently. The evacuation started 2 weeks ago. The Krell don't know that. To them it's still a target-rich environment. She manipulated the hologram showing the Krell fleet's projected approach vector. They'll commit everything to taking it. Their entire command structure will be in range. But we cannot win a straight fight, Thrace protested. Even with our entire fleet defending the system, we'd be outnumbered 3-1. That's why we don't fight straight. Maya's grin was feral. We cheat. Over the next hour, she laid out the most audacious, reckless, and desperate plan the Coalition had ever heard. It involved mines, misdirection, micro-jumps, and what her father would have called the mother of all sucker punches. It also required perfect timing, flawless execution, and luck they probably didn't have. This is insane, Admiral Voris said when she finished. It's very human, Thrace corrected. something like pride in her voice. If it fails, High General Crix warned, we lose everything. The fleet, Threshold Prime, any hope of organized resistance. Maya met his eyes. If we fight them conventionally, we lose anyway. This way we at least have a chance. The silence stretched. Finally, Admiral Voris clicked his mandibles in decision. I will present this to Coalition Command. But Chen, understand what you're asking. If they approve this plan, you will be responsible for executing it. Can you carry that weight? Maya thought of Earth, of her father teaching her to fight, of her mother reading her stories about underdogs and impossible victories. She thought of Kraith and her team, of the respect she'd earned, the trust they'd placed in her chaotic human thinking. I can carry it, she said. Coalition Command approved the plan 6 hours later, with one modification. Maya wouldn't just coordinate the defense, she'd command a temporary rank of fleet commander with full authority over coalition naval assets in the Threshold sector. She was 18 years old. The news spread through the academy like wildfire. Some called it inspiration, others called it desperation. Maya called it Tuesday and got back to work. She handpicked her command staff. Kraith handled fleet coordination. Thorn managed engineering and power distribution. Yoring took weapons systems, Silix commanded the fighter wings, and Commander Thrace, who volunteered to come out of her instructional role, served as her executive officer. Interesting team, Admiral Helena Cross observed, watching them work together in the war room. A month ago, half of them wanted you expelled. A month ago, I was just the human girl who didn't know her place. Maya studied the defensive positions on her tactical display. Now I'm the human girl who might save their lives. Motivation is a wonderful thing. Her aunt's expression grew serious. Maya, I need to know you understand what you're walking into. This isn't a simulation. When those ships start dying, they won't respawn. When people start dying, they won't come back. I know. Maya's hands stilled on the controls. Dad told me about his missions. The ones that went wrong. He said the hardest part wasn't pulling the trigger. It was living with the consequences. He also told you about the ones that went right, Helena said softly. The lives saved. The impossible victories. You're his daughter in more ways than blood. Then let's make him proud. The Krell fleet arrived exactly on schedule, dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the Threshold system like a biblical plague. Maya watched from the bridge of the Coalition flagship Indomitable, her hands surprisingly steady as thousands of hostile contacts bloomed across her tactical display. All ships, battle stations, she ordered, her voice carrying across the fleet command channel, execute defensive formation, Delta 7. The Coalition fleet moved into position. 300 ships, representing every species in the Alliance, spreading out to protect the planet below. To the Krell, it would look like a standard defensive perimeter. It was anything but. They're advancing, Kraith reported from his station. Fleet composition matches our projections. 12 command carriers at the center, supported by heavy cruisers and destroyer screens. Let them come, Maya said. She glanced at Thrace, who nodded grimly. All ships, weapons hold. Do not engage until I give the command. The Krell fleet advanced slowly, methodically, their formations perfect. Maya watched them come, her mind tracking dozens of variables simultaneously. Distance, speed, formation density, the position of those command carriers. They're in weapons range, Yoring announced. Still no response to our hails. They don't talk, Thrace said. They consume, it's all they know. The Krell opened fire. The void lit up with energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. Coalition shields flared, deflecting most of the initial barrage, but 3 ships took critical hits. Return fire, Maya ordered. All ships, pattern Alpha. The Coalition fleet unleashed a coordinated salvo, their weapons fire precise but ultimately ineffective against the Krell's superior numbers. Ships on both sides began to die. The void filled with debris and expanding clouds of superheated gas. We're losing ships, Kraith said, urgency creeping into his voice. Maya, we need to hold formation, Maya commanded. Her eyes never left the tactical display, watching the Krell fleet push deeper into the system, their command carriers moving inexorably toward the planet. Not yet. More ships died. The Krell pressed their advantage, sensing weakness. Their formations tightened, consolidating for the final push. Almost there. All ships, Maya said quietly, execute Thermopylae protocol on my mark. She waited as Coalition ships exploded around her. Waited as the Krell command carriers moved into the killing zone she'd prepared, waited until her hand ached from gripping the command console so tightly. Mark, the space around Threshold Prime erupted with invisible fury. Thousands of autonomous mines, hidden in orbital debris fields and comet trails, activated simultaneously. They didn't target the Krell's military ships. They targeted their geometry. The mines detonated in precise sequence, creating cascading waves of electromagnetic interference and gravitational disruption. The Krell fleet, operating as one perfect organism, suddenly found its coordination shattered. Ships collided. Formations broke apart. The hive mind screamed in electronic agony as its ability to communicate fragmented. Phase 2, Maya ordered. All fighters, launch. 1,000 coalition fighters poured from hidden bays on Threshold Prime's moons. They'd been waiting in radio silence, invisible to Krell sensors. Now they streaked toward the enemy command carriers like angry hornets, exploiting the chaos. Target their command ships. Silix directed from the fighter control station. Disable, don't destroy, we need them functional. The fighters swarmed the command carriers, their precision weapons targeting communication arrays and control systems. Within minutes, 6 of the 12 carriers went dark, their hive coordination severed. The Krell fleet began to collapse. Without central coordination, individual ships reverted to basic attack protocols, losing the tactical sophistication that made them so dangerous. They were still deadly, but now they were predictable. All capital ships, concentrated fire on these coordinates, Maya commanded, highlighting the 6 remaining command carriers. Overwhelming force. Don't give them time to adapt. The coalition fleet, no longer fighting defensively, unleashed everything it had. Concentrated fire from 300 warships hammered the command carriers. Shields collapsed. Hulls breached. One by one, the remaining carriers died. The Krell fleet shuddered. Then, like puppets with cut strings, the ships simply stopped fighting. They hung in space, motionless, their hive mind decapitated. Cease fire, Maya ordered. Her legs felt weak, her hands were shaking now. Adrenaline crash hitting hard. All ships damage report. The numbers came in slowly. 73 coalition ships destroyed. Another 120 damaged, but the Krell fleet was neutralized, and Threshold Prime remained intact. They'd won. The bridge of the Indomitable erupted into cheers. Krathik grabbed Maya in a crushing hug that would have been inappropriate if it hadn't been so genuine. Thorn was crying, her Kaleshi tears shimmering like mercury. Even Yoren was grinning, her predatory smile now one of pure joy. Commander Thrace approached Maya, her scaled face solemn despite the celebration around them. That was the bravest, most reckless thing I've ever witnessed. If it had failed, you would have been responsible for the greatest military disaster in coalition history, but it didn't fail, Maya said softly. No, Thrace agreed, it didn't. You thought like a human, fought like a human, and won like a human. Perhaps that's what we've been missing all along. The aftermath was chaos of a different sort. The surviving Krell ships without hive coordination were captured and studied. Scientists made discoveries about their biology and technology that would fuel research for decades. The disabled command carriers yielded intelligence about Krell's territory, resources, and weaknesses. But more importantly, they'd proven that the Krell could be beaten. 3 days after the battle, Maya stood in the Academy's main assembly hall, surrounded by every cadet and instructor in the facility. Admiral Vorshis, High General Krixin, and a dozen other coalition leaders had assembled for the ceremony. Cadet Maya Chen, Admiral Voris intoned formally. You have demonstrated tactical brilliance, strategic innovation, and courage beyond measure. You took command of coalition forces during our darkest hour and delivered victory when defeat seemed certain. By unanimous vote of coalition command, you are hereby awarded the Star of Valor, the coalition's highest military honor. He placed the medal around her neck. It was heavy, crafted from metals found only in the cores of dying stars. Only 87 beings had ever received it in the coalition's 3,000-year history. Maya was the first human. The assembly erupted into applause, but Maya's eyes found her team standing in the front row: Krath, Silix, Thorn, Yoren, and Commander Thrace. They'd believed in her when no one else did. They'd trusted her chaotic thinking, when everything in their training screamed to reject it. After the ceremony, as the hall emptied, Krath approached her. The Varanthi cadet who'd grabbed her collar in anger all those weeks ago now carried himself differently. There was respect in his crystalline features, but also something else. "French, I need to apologize," he said quietly. "Not just for grabbing your collar that day, but for everything that came before. I saw you as a threat to everything I believed about my people's superiority. I was wrong." "You weren't wrong to be proud of your heritage," Maya replied. "You were just wrong to think it was threatened by mine. We're stronger together. That's the whole point. The humans have a saying, don't they? About iron sharpening iron." Maya smiled. "We have a lot of sayings. Most of them are violent metaphors. We're working on that." They stood together watching Threshold Prime through the viewport. Reconstruction had already begun on the damaged sections of the planet. The Coalition had survived, but it had changed. Earth's unconventional thinking was no longer seen as primitive or onder. It was valued, studied, integrated into military doctrine. "What will you do now?" Krell asked. "You've achieved more at 18 than most beings accomplish in entire lifetimes." "I'm going to finish my education," Maya said. "Learn everything I can from every species in the Coalition, and then maybe help make sure we never cut things continue ungen that close again." "You're staying? Where else would I go? Earth was my home. But this," she gestured at the Academy, "at the planet, at the stars beyond, this is my future." 6 months later, Maya stood in the same assembly hall for graduation. She wasn't valedictorian, despite her tactical achievements. That honor went to a Sethari engineer who'd revolutionized shield harmonics. But Maya didn't mind. She'd proven what she needed to prove. The graduation ceremony followed Coalition tradition, with each species' representatives performing their cultural recognition rites. When the human cadets were called forward, something unexpected happened. Every species in the hall performed the human gesture of respect. They stood and applauded. The Varanti, who'd questioned humanity's worthiness. The Grendari, who doubted human intelligence. The Kaleshi, the Sethari, the Zethari, and dozens of others. They all stood, acknowledging that humanity had earned its place among the stars. Ambassador Helena Cross watched from the viewing gallery, tears streaming down her face. Her niece, the girl who'd left Earth 8 months ago with something to prove, had changed the entire Coalition's perspective on what humans could achieve. After the ceremony, Maya found herself surrounded by offers, fleet commands, strategic positions, research opportunities. Every branch of the Coalition military wanted the human tactical genius who'd defeated the Krell. She turned them all down. "I'm not ready," she told Admiral Vorthas when he personally offered her a position on Coalition Strategic Command. "I'm 18 years old. I got lucky once. I need to learn more, grow more, before I'm responsible for that kind of power again." "Wise," the Admiral said. "And exactly the answer I hoped to hear. Power without wisdom is dangerous. But wisdom without experience is wasted." "What will you do?" "Go back to Earth," Maya said. "Spend time with my family. Remember where I come from. Then come back and teach. The next generation of cadets needs to learn that different doesn't mean inferior. That chaos can be structured. That sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects." She left Threshold 3 days later, boarding a transport bound for Earth. Kraithchilix, Thorn and Yorin came to see her off. Her team forged in simulated fire and tempered in real battle. "We'll see you again," Kraith said, pressing his forehead to hers in the Varanthi gesture of eternal friendship. "The Coalition needs humans like you." "The Coalition needs beings like you," Maya corrected. "All of you. Every species, every perspective, every way of thinking. That's what makes us strong." As the transport lifted off, Maya watched Threshold Prime shrink in the viewport. She thought about everything that had happened, about the alien who'd grabbed her collar in anger and how that simple moment had led to the salvation of 300 civilizations. She thought about her father, who'd taught her to fight but also to think, about her aunt who'd believed in humanity's potential when so many doubted, about Commander Thrace, who'd seen beyond species and recognized skill. But mostly she thought about the future, about the galaxy that had once seemed so vast and intimidating, now familiar and welcoming, about the students she'd teach, the strategies she'd develop, the lives she'd... The human girl who didn't know her place had found it. Among the stars,